In the time when the world was not fully awake, when mountains were only the sleeping backs of stone, and rivers were still searching for their path to the sea, the ancestral spirits gathered under a dark, starless sky. They sat in a pale circle of light, debating the fate of the newborn earth. At that time, there were no humans, no language, not even day and night, as they are known today. Time was only a long breath that never ended. The spirits wished to create a balance for the world, for they knew every living thing needed a shadow, so that light would not consume itself. They had already created the eagle, with its noble wings, the deer who walked with quiet grace, the wolf, loyal to its kin, and the bear, who carried the strength of the seasons. Yet everything felt too orderly, too perfect, too obedient to the laws of the sky. If the world is made only of purity, said the oldest spirit, its voice like the earth rumbling beneath erupting mountains, then there will be no questions. Without questions, there will be no journey. Without journey, there will be no story. And without story, this world will die before it grows. And so they decided to create something different, something that could set the world in motion, not only by light, but by curiosity, desire, and the small madness that makes life worth living. Something that could shake rules, challenge boundaries, and make the sky laugh at itself from time to time. From this idea, the spirits pulled the farthest starlight and mixed it with dark soil full of ancient secrets. They breathed the first breath into that mixture. The ground trembled, the air shivered, and from the gray mist emerged a being that looked neither like a spirit nor a common animal. It was small and slender, its face sly, its eyes sharp and always searching for what had not yet been found. Its long tail swayed like wind. The sky itself gave it a name, Coyote. As soon as its feet touched the earth, it burst into loud laughter, as if the world was a joke only it could understand. The laughter echoed to the highest mountain peaks and down into the deepest soil. That laughter awakened life around it. Grass sprouted. Flowers bloomed without color, and birds discovered their voices. Nature responded to Coyote, not because it was a leader, but because it broke a silence nothing else could. The spirits knew Coyote was not a creature to be predicted. They gave it no rules, no prohibitions, no sacred mission. They only whispered, "Do what you believe is right, or wrong. As long as you move, the world will move." Coyote walked the world for the first time, leaving prints in soft earth. Every step created something new. When it moved too fast, the ground split and became a river. When it stopped in surprise at its own shadow, a mountain rose before it. When it leaped to catch the attention of the birds in the sky, clouds took the shape of its tail. It was not a creator in the honorable sense it created because its curiosity forced the world to change. On the first night after its birth, Coyote watched the stars flicker like the eyes of distant spirits. It wondered, why am I here? What is my purpose? But as soon as the questions came, it laughed again. To Coyote, questions were not meant to be answered. Questions were reasons to move, to try, to play with the things no one understood. It tried everything. How water sounds when struck by a stone, how wind tastes when chased, how shadows look when light is hidden. Each attempt created something. From the sound of water came echoes, from chasing the wind came storms, from hiding the light came night. Often, it did not know what it was doing, but the world learned from every act. Some spirits watched in confusion, others in fear, others in wonder. But the oldest spirit always smiled. "Look," it said to the others. "It is the beginning of beautiful chaos. It keeps the world awake." Time passed, though time did not yet know how to be measured. Coyote became a being caught between two realms, between right and wrong, between good and wicked, between laughter and the sky's fury. It was no hero, but neither was it a villain. It was the trickster, the sacred mischief maker, born not to destroy, but to allow mistakes so that truth could have meaning. One day, Coyote sat beneath a tree that had no name. It watched the ants work without rest. It looked at the sky and watched birds fly without hesitation. It looked at the water and saw its own reflection twisting with the current. In that moment it realized the world moved without needing reason, but reason would appear if someone dared to seek it. And it decided that it would be the creature that always asked, always searched, always broke rules so that rules could be made again, always laughed at the world so the world could laugh at itself. That is where Coyote's story truly began, not as a noble origin, but as the first step on a long path filled with madness and hidden wisdom. The world would change because of it. Fire would be stolen, rivers would flood, mountains would rise, and humans would one day learn that goodness often comes from places filled with disorder, and as long as that first laughter still echoes in the earth. Coyote will never truly die, for it is part of how nature keeps itself alive. After many cycles of moon and darkness, the world had begun to learn the shape of itself. Rivers had carved their beds, mountains had risen like old bones breaking through the skin of the earth, and forests whispered ancient secrets to the wind. Yet one thing remained absent from this newborn land: warmth. Night still ruled longer than day, and cold clung to the bodies of every living creature. In those early nights, humans had already come into existence. They were fragile beings, soft-skinned, and easily wounded, but with eyes full of wonder. They walked the earth quietly, afraid of the shadows that moved beyond their camps. They huddled together beneath animal skins, whispering stories about spirits they had never seen. Their breath turned into frost in the air, and their dreams were pale and shivering. Coyote watched them from the edges of the trees. He had seen eagles claim the sky, wolves claim the night, and bears claim the mountain caves. But these new creatures had claimed nothing. They trembled even at the rustling of leaves. Yet in their fear, Coyote sensed something powerful: possibility. Their fragility did not weaken them. It forced them to think, to imagine, to tell stories around the darkness. Coyote wondered what they might become if someone gave them a chance. One night, as frost formed silver patterns on the ground, Coyote lifted his eyes toward the distant hills where the gods lived. There, high above the mortal world, the divine spirits gathered around a great circle of flame. The fire burned brighter than stars, red as dawn, and alive with the breath of creation. It danced like a living being, feeding light into the sky and heat into the bodies of the gods. Coyote's eyes narrowed. He remembered the whisper of the oldest spirit at his birth. Do what you believe is right, or wrong. As long as you move, the world will move. Fire was forbidden to all creatures of earth. It belonged to the gods alone, so that only they might bask in warmth, so that only they would see clearly at night. Mortals were meant to accept the cold and live in shadows. Coyote began to laugh, quiet at first, then louder, until even the trees seemed to tremble. What was a rule, he thought, except a story that someone else had spoken? And what was a story, if not something that could be changed? So he set his mind to steal the flame. He waited for the sky to darken completely, when even the gods grew weary of singing and feasting. He masked his scent with the dust of the riverbank, silenced his footsteps with leaves soaked in dew, and wrapped his tail around his body so that it would not brush against the glowing coals. He moved as if he had been born from the shadow itself. The gods sat around the fire, their bodies shining like polished stone. They spoke of stars forming in the deepest sky, of seas rising and falling like breath. They saw everything, except the slight ripple of darkness that crept between them. Coyote approached the fire, and felt its heat scorch his fur. The flames roared like a living beast, reminding him that this was the first fire, the fire that had shaped the world. His heart beat faster, but fear only made him smile wider. He took a breath, as deep as the first breath ever given to him, and thrust his muzzle forward. His teeth snapped on a glowing ember, and he held it between his jaws. The pain was immediate. Flames licked his mouth, burning his tongue, searing his whiskers. Smoke curled from his fur. He bit down harder, trapping the ember before it could fall. His eyes watered, but he refused to let the ember go. But the gods had noticed. A roar echoed across the heavens. The fire's guardians leaped to their feet, sending sparks blazing across the sky. The mountain shook. The stars shivered. Coyote ran like the wind that was born from his own laughter at the dawn of the world. The gods chased him with thunder at their heels. Coyote's paws tore through soil and stone, leaving scars that would become valleys. The embers scorched his throat, turning his howl into smoke. His fur caught flame at the edges, trailing fire behind him like a comet. He reached the mortal world. Humans woke from their restless sleep, startled by the sky burning like dawn at midnight. They saw a silhouette racing toward them, wild, desperate, and blazing. Coyote stumbled into their camp, his tongue swollen, his fur half burned, his breath breaking apart like shattered glass. He collapsed. The ember dropped from his mouth onto the frozen earth. For a moment, there was silence, then a burst of light. Flames rose, golden and living, cracking through the darkness. Warmth touched human skin for the first time. Shadows retreated. The cold loosened its grip on their bones. Humans gathered around the fire with awe. Some cried, some laughed, some stared without blinking. They could not speak the name of the creature who had brought them warmth, but they felt gratitude in their hearts. Coyote lay still, his chest rising slowly. Pain pulsed through his body, yet he smiled. He had broken a rule so ancient that even mountains trembled, but he had given something greater in return: hope. Far above, the gods stared down at the flame glowing in the human camp. Some were furious, some were horrified, but the oldest spirit whispered, "He moves, so the world moves. Even our fire has meaning only when shared." The gods turned away, and their anger settled into the sky. The clouds grew dark and heavy, promising storms to come. Nothing stolen from the divine would be given without consequence. Humans now had fire. But fire brought not only warmth, it brought hunger, ambition, and dreams that reached beyond fear. A gift from a trickster was never simple. It carried a price written into the future. As dawn finally broke, Coyote rose painfully to his feet. His fur was blackened, his whiskers gone, his throat raw, but he laughed hoarse, broken, yet triumphant. For in the heart of every flame, he had left a piece of his first laughter. And humanity would never again be alone in the dark. The night after the fire was born in the human camp, the sky did not rest. Clouds gathered like wounded spirits over the mountains where the gods sat in silence. The divine circle that once glowed with warmth now felt broken, its flames smaller, its glow colder. A single ember missing from the sacred fire had changed the balance of the world. The gods stared at the empty space where the ember had been taken. It was not just fire that had been stolen, it was privilege, power, and the belief that the divine was untouchable. Anger smoldered like hot stone beneath ice. "Who has dared this insult?" asked one of the younger gods, his voice like cracking lightning. But they all knew the answer. Only one creature had the audacity to laugh in the face of the sky: Coyote. Far below, Coyote limped between the trees, every step echoing pain from his burned paws. Smoke still curled from the ends of his fur. The humans, grateful but frightened, had given him water and wrapped him in skins, yet he had not stayed long. He could not remain among them, not while the gods searched for him, not while the earth trembled with divine fury. He moved through the forest with the memory of fire burning inside his chest. His breath tasted of ash. Every heartbeat was a spark against his ribs. But he felt something else too. A strange joy, raw and wild. He had changed the world. He had given light to those who lived in darkness. And now, the world would chase him for it. Behind him, thunder rolled across the hills. The gods were coming. He ran not as a beast, but as an idea. He ran like the moment between question and answer, like the break between silence and laughter. His paws barely touched the ground. Trees bent as he passed, rivers parted around him, stones cracked beneath his weight. Yet no matter how fast he ran, the heavens were faster. Bolts of divine fire struck the earth behind him, exploding in showers of molten stone. Mountains shook, forests burst into brief flame, and rivers boiled at the edges. The gods did not shout. Now they hunted in silence, a storm with purpose. Coyote understood that his theft was more than a prank. Fire had changed humans, and humans would change the world. Because of him, mortals would shape metal, cook food, forge tools, and create stories that stretched beyond fear. And in those stories, the gods would no longer be the only authors. That was the true danger. He reached a canyon carved from ancient rivers. Its walls were steep, but the bottom was shadowed, hidden by fog thick as wool. Without hesitation, Coyote hurled himself into the darkness. He rolled, crashed against stone, and slid through mud into a cavern that smelled of salt and bone. The air was cold, still untouched by the fire above. Coyote lay there, exhausted, his breath shallow. Just as he closed his eyes, a whisper slid through the cave. Was it worth it? Coyote's ears twitched. Out of the darkness stepped Raven, nocturnal traveler of the in-between world. His feathers glistened like wet ink, and his eyes carried the reflection of distant stars. Humans have fire now, Raven continued, tilting his head with a sly smile. They will never again walk blind in the night. They will hunt better, survive longer. They will fear less. But fear is how the gods kept order. Coyote swallowed the pain in his throat. Fear kept them small, he rasped. And now, Raven asked, stepping closer. Now they will grow, and when they grow, they will question. Questions become rebellion. Rebellion becomes change. The gods do not love change. Coyote laughed, though it came out like a cough. Change is the only thing the world understands. Raven regarded him for a long moment. Then he spread his wings. The gods are near. They want the thief punished not because he stole fire, but because he gave it away. They will tear open the world to stop what you've begun. Let them try, Coyote whispered. Raven's eyes softened not in kindness, but in respect. Run, Trickster. Survive. The world is different now because of you. But a gift like yours always carries a shadow. With that, Raven vanished into the dark, leaving only the echo of his wings. Coyote forced himself to stand. His legs trembled, but he climbed back up the canyon wall. As he reached the rim, lightning struck nearby, showering him with sparks. The gods were closer than ever. He sprinted. Across plains where grass bowed under the weight of the storm. Up hills where wind screamed warnings. Through valleys shaped by forgotten waters. Each roar of thunder was a command. Return what you stole. Each flash of lightning was a threat. Your story ends here. But Coyote was a trickster, born from starlight and shadow. His story could not end simply because the sky wished it. He reached a lake so still, it reflected the storm above, like a perfect mirror. Without slowing, he dove into its icy depths. The cold water quenched the fire in his fur, but the ember's pain still burned in his chest like memory. He swam until his lungs screamed, until every muscle in his body felt like stone. Finally, he surfaced on the far shore, gasping. The gods' thunder sounded distant now, but it would not remain so for long. The world had shrunk under their anger. As he staggered into the forest, he looked back at the mountains glowing with divine rage. He knew the chase was not over. It was only beginning. For the gods did not just want Coyote, they wanted the future he had delivered into the hands of fragile creatures. They wanted the darkness of ignorance restored. They wanted a world without questions. Coyote grinned through the pain. Let them chase, he thought. Let them roar. Let them throw mountains and storms. For every step they took, to erase his deed. Humans would take 2 steps forward, toward firelight, toward knowledge, toward stories that could not be unmade. And somewhere in the night, far from divine eyes, humans fed their first flames. Sparks rose into the sky like tiny stars escaping gravity. Their fires told a story written in orange and gold, that a wounded trickster had changed everything. The gods would never forgive him. The world would never forget him. And the dangerous theft had only just begun. The world was still shivering in the cold darkness when Coyote landed on the valley floor, his paws scorched black and his fur smelling like smoke. Each breath hurt. Each step left a trail of glowing sparks falling from the ember he carried buried in his chest fur. The night was silent, shrouded in frost, unaware that something ancient had shifted forever. Fire once the secret treasure of the gods was, now rushing through the wilderness, in the trembling steps of a trickster who had nearly died to steal it. Coyote collapsed beside a patch of winter grass. The ember inside his fur pulsed with a soft red glow like a heartbeat. He looked up at the stars wheeling overhead, bright, cold, distant. In them he could almost see the faces of the sky chiefs, their burning eyes, their furious grins. They would not forgive him. They would hunt him, and the world would shake with their anger. But Coyote grinned anyway, even with his cracked lips and bleeding paws. Because this pain meant something, humans would live. The ember flickered violently, as if trying to leap free and return to the sky. Coyote pressed a paw against it, whispering through his pain. Not yet, not until they see the light. As dawn rose, humans emerged from their shelters, thin huts of bark and grass, barely holding back the cold. Their breaths smoked in the air. They had never seen a glow that moved like a living thing. never felt warmth that was not fleeting and stolen from the sun during summer. They stared at Coyote lying on the earth, his breath shallow, a strange reddish light trapped against his chest. A child small, with frost on her eyelashes, stepped forward. She reached out, fearless. Coyote opened his eyes just enough to meet hers. There was something in the child that reminded him of the first spark he ever saw, reflected in his mother's eyes. Wildness, hunger, and a dream of something more than survival. "Take it," Coyote whispered. The ember fell from his fur into the child's hands. It did not burn her. Instead, it flared gently like a newborn sun cupped between her palms. The tribes gathered around her, eyes wide, breath caught in their throats. The child turned to the elders, unsure what she held. Then the ember released a tongue of flame that licked the cold air and bloomed into a small fire. Gasps echoed through the valley. The flame danced, casting shadows like spirits across the earth. People felt something new. Warmth that stayed, a light that pushed back the night. They fed the flame with dry sticks, and the fire grew, blazing with orange and gold, spitting sparks upward like stars falling back to earth. Coyote watched them from the ground. His breathing slowed. He saw their faces glowing in the firelight. Wonder, relief, delight. Mothers brought their children close, showing them how to hold their hands near the heat without fear. Hunters warmed their stiff fingers. Old men who had forgotten the feeling of warmth wept quietly. For the first time, humans understood that light did not belong only to the sky. And with that understanding came everything else. They roasted roots and meat, tasting flavors they had never known. They gathered around the flames at night, telling stories that would carry through generations. They forged tools harder than stone, shaped into blades that glinted red in the firelight. The wolves circling the camp stayed at the shadow's edge, fearful. The cold retreated. But gifts come with consequences. The sky chiefs woke to the smell of smoke rising from the valley. They saw a light on the earth where there should have been none. Their fury shook the clouds. Lightning cracked across the sky. Trees bowed as wind rushed through the mountains. "Coyote!" Their voices roared across the world. "Coyote has betrayed us." Thunder boomed, echoing in Coyote's chest like a second heartbeat. His fur stood on end. Every instinct screamed, "Run," but he did not. Not yet. Not while the fire was still new, fragile like a baby taking its first breath. He lifted his head, teeth bared in a half grin. "You can chase me," Coyote hissed into the wind. "But the fire stays." He turned to the humans, who were now staring at the sky with fear. The flames reflected in their eyes, like suns trembling in water. "You must guard it," he told them. His voice was raspy, broken, but carried the weight of myth. "Feed it, respect it, or it will burn you as it burned me. It can save you, or it can destroy the world. Fire is hunger with a spirit." The elders nodded. They began building stone circles to cradle the flames. They taught children to gather wood with gratitude, never greed. They learned that fire demanded equal parts caution and courage. Coyote stood up on shaking legs. The child approached him again, her tiny hand warm now, not blue with cold. She touched his paw. "Why did you get hurt for us?" she asked. Coyote blinked. Many answers danced across his mind. Mischief, curiosity, pride. But when he looked at the child, he saw the truth reflected in her eyes. Because humans deserve more than darkness, and because, in that darkness, he had seen himself. With that, Coyote turned toward the mountains. The wind howled like wolves and gods screaming together. The chase would begin soon. The sky chiefs would descend with lightning spears, and the world would tremble. But behind him, the valley burned with small living suns, and laughter rose with sparks into the brightening sky. Coyote grinned one more time. He knew that fire was more than warmth. It was imagination. It was defiance. It was the first tool that would lift humans from prey to creators, from shadows into storytellers. And long after the gods' fury faded, people would still gather around flames and whisper tales of the trickster who stole the light. The chase had begun, but the gift was already given. Coyote sprinted into the dawn, leaving footprints that smoked and glowed faintly like embers guiding humanity toward the age of fire. Coyote ran through the dawn-lit forest, his blackened fur still steaming from the stolen ember. The world was alive in ways it had never been before. Birds sang. Rivers shimmered in the morning sun, and humans huddled around the small fires he had given them. He paused atop a hill, surveying the valley below. Smoke spiraled into the sky like fingers reaching for the heavens, and humans moved among it with wide-eyed wonder. A laugh rose in his throat, hoarse, broken, and yet triumphant. For the first time, he felt the power of creation in his paws. He had stolen fire from the gods themselves, outwitted their wrath, and gifted it to beings who had never known warmth. The thought made his chest swell. He shook his tail, sending sparks flying like shooting stars over the forest. And in that moment, pride took root in him. "Look at what I have done," he shouted into the morning wind. "The gods cannot touch me. The humans will sing my name. The world is mine to shape." But pride is a dangerous flame, often brighter than any hearth. As Coyote celebrated, the air seemed to tremble around him. Leaves shivered, the rivers hissed, and even the mountains groaned under the weight of the god's gaze. He did not see it yet, blinded by his own cleverness, his laughter echoing like thunder. The sky chiefs, high in their celestial halls, watched through the veil of clouds. Their fury was not quiet, nor patient. Lightning streaked across the horizon, illuminating Coyote's proud stance. "Do you see what arrogance brings, Trickster?" One deity thundered, its voice shaking the heavens. "You have given fire to mortals, yes, but you have also given them defiance. You have taught them to question, to rise. You have disturbed the order of the world." Coyote lifted his head, his ears twitching. "Order is boring," he said. "Rules are only stories. I write my own stories now, and the world will dance to them." The god's storm swelled. Lightning struck a tree nearby, splitting it in two, sending shards flying. Coyote leaped back with a triumphant grin, his pride unshaken. Pain touched him, the air singed his fur, but he only laughed louder. His laughter echoed across the valley, reaching the humans below. They froze, sensing a wild power coursing through the wind. Some whispered to each other, "Is it the gods? Or is it something else?" Coyote felt alive, more than alive, invincible. He ran along the hilltops, shaking the earth with his jumps. Rivers trembled, animals scattered, and yet he cared little. "I am the one who gave fire. I am the trickster. None can stop me." The humans, still tending their first flames, watched in awe and fear. They felt the power of Coyote's pride, and even though they did not understand its full meaning, they instinctively guarded their fires closer, touching the warmth as if it were a talisman against the storm above. But pride is a dangerous companion. From the horizon, a shadow appeared, not of cloud, but of shape. One of the gods, enraged beyond patience, descended from the heavens. Its eyes burned with lightning. Its voice was a gale. "Coyote," it roared, "your cleverness blinds you. You have given mortals fire, yes, but you have also lit the spark of rebellion. You dare to celebrate while the heavens tremble." Coyote froze for a fraction of a heartbeat. Then he grinned wider, teeth flashing white against blackened fur. "Let them come. I am untouchable." But even as he boasted, the world whispered warnings. Small cracks appeared in the earth beneath his paws, sparks of lightning danced dangerously close to his tail, and birds cried warnings he ignored. The storm above was not just thunder, it was judgment, and it gathered strength with every boast he uttered. As the day wore on, Coyote leaped from hill to hill, mocking the sky with acrobatic tricks, daring the gods to strike him down. Yet with each jump, he felt a twinge in his shoulder, a burn along his flank, a whisper of fear that he refused to acknowledge. Pride is intoxicating, but even the most cunning trickster must respect the weight of consequences. Humans, huddled in their circle of flames, felt the tension. The air was thick, charged with power, and they instinctively offered thanks and prayers not to Coyote, but to the fire that he had brought into their lives. That fire, they realized, was both a gift and a test. They would learn, over generations, that every warmth carries risk. Coyote paused at the summit of a ridge, looking down at the valley below. Flames glimmered in the morning light, dancing across the faces of humans who had never known hope. He felt pride and satisfaction swell inside him. He had given them life in a new form. He had stolen from the gods. He had outwitted the heavens. But deep beneath the thrill of triumph, a seed of unease took root. The gods were patient, the gods were eternal, and their wrath would not fade, with time it would grow. Coyote shook his head, trying to banish the thought. "They cannot catch me," he whispered, louder than a whisper. "I am Coyote. I am the Trickster. I am beyond their reach." And yet, in the corner of his mind, a quiet warning trembled, like the first flicker of a candle in wind. Pride precedes the fall. Every spark can become wildfire, but Coyote, drunk on his cleverness and the thrill of stolen fire, ignored it. He leaped once more, his shadow long across the valley, laughing, daring the gods, daring the world, daring fate itself, and somewhere far above, lightning split the sky in anger, promising lessons yet to come. Coyote's pride had ignited, wild, fierce, unstoppable. And the consequences of that pride would soon follow him, like shadows stalking the light of dawn. Coyote leaped from ridge to ridge, chest burning with pride, laughter echoing across the valley. The humans below tended their fires, huddled together with wide eyes, sensing both wonder and danger. Sparks of light danced across their faces, reminding them that life could be bright, but fragile. Coyote's tail trailed behind him like a comet, carrying the stolen embers' warmth with every bound. He thought himself untouchable. He had stolen fire from the gods. He had survived their wrath. He had gifted humans warmth, light, and hope. No force on earth or in the heavens could harm him now. But the river watched. Long before humans walked these lands, before the first trees bent under the wind, the rivers had been ruled by spirits older than mountains. The river spirit was neither cruel nor kind, only a guardian of balance, flowing through valleys, carving paths, and reminding the earth that life could not be taken without consequence. Coyote had disturbed that balance. The stolen fire did not belong to humans alone. It passed through rivers and stones, forests and plains, carrying both light and arrogance. And the river spirit, sensing this imbalance, rose from the depths in the dead of night. The water surged violently, churning into towering waves. Mist rose like spectral hands reaching for the sky. Coyote, still dancing in his pride, did not notice the shadow creeping along the riverbank. "You dare to defy heaven and earth alike," the voice rumbled soft, yet as deep as the riverbed itself. "You give fire where it does not belong. You claim greatness for yourself while the balance quivers." Coyote paused mid-leap, his ears twitched. "Balance is for the weak," he called back, teeth bared, grin wide. "I make the rules now." "Fire belongs to those who take it," the river responded. Its current surged toward him like a living thing. Water rose high above the banks, forming a wall of liquid, rushing faster than the wind itself. The roar of the river was not thunder, it was judgment. And in its depths, Coyote could feel the power of something far older than pride, older than fire, older than the gods' fury. Before he could leap away, the river spirit struck. A wall of icy water slammed into him, throwing him against stones and snapping branches like twigs. He tumbled end over end, struggling to breathe as the river swallowed him. Fire flared briefly against the wetness, sizzling out as steam hissed into the night. Coyote sank beneath the water, clawing, fighting, panicking. Every attempt to flee only dragged him deeper. The river's hands, gentle, yet unyielding, pinned him beneath the current. His lungs burned. His fur matted with water and soot. For the first time, Coyote could not outwit nature, could not trick the world. "Do you understand now?" the river spirit asked. Its voice flowed through the water, through Coyote's chest, into his bones. "You have given humans fire, yes. You have given them hope, yes. But with every gift, there is a price. You cannot escape the consequences of your own actions. Pride blinds even the cleverest." Coyote tried to reply, to boast, to laugh, but the words choked in his throat. The river pressed closer, cold and relentless, forcing him to see what his arrogance had caused. Sparks of fire, stolen from the gods, hissed and drowned in the water. Smoke curled into the night like a sigh. The forest seemed to shiver under the weight of his punishment. The river spirit continued, its voice neither cruel nor forgiving. "Life must have balance. Fire gives warmth and destruction. Humans are gifted, but they must learn responsibility. You, Trickster, are neither god nor mortal. You are the bridge between chaos and order, and even bridges can break if they lean too far in one direction. Coyote felt the truth press against him like the icy current. He had laughed too loudly, jumped too high, celebrated without care. For the first time, he feared not for himself, but for the world he had touched. The ember in his chest flickered weakly, struggling to survive. The humans' fires below seemed small, fragile, but alive. They depended on him, even unknowingly. He let go of pride. Not entirely. Coyote never surrendered completely. But he stopped fighting the river's embrace. He allowed the water to sweep over him, to push him, to teach him the rhythm of consequences. Every stroke against the current reminded him. Cleverness alone is not enough. Survival requires respect for forces larger than oneself. Hours passed, or perhaps moments, for time flowed strangely in the river's depths. When he finally emerged, coughing, gasping, and shaken, he was a changed creature. His fur hung in wet clumps, his blackened paws scraped and bleeding. His laughter was quieter, subdued, like smoke drifting upward from dying embers. The river receded, leaving him on the shore. Mist curled around his body, and the first rays of sunlight touched the valley. Coyote looked at the human fires in the distance. They still burned. They were still alive, and for the first time he realized the gift of fire was not a trophy, nor a prize. It was a responsibility. Coyote rose slowly, legs trembling, muscles aching. He licked his fur, shook the water from his tail, and looked to the horizon where the gods would surely continue their hunt. Yet, beneath his pain, beneath the humility imposed by the river, a spark of understanding flickered. He had given humans a gift, but he could not protect them through force alone. They must learn, as all creatures do, to live with what they were given. And Coyote, clever, wild, mischievous, smiled quietly. Not for himself, but for the humans who now held fire in their hands. The river spirit's judgment had passed, but its lesson lingered. Every leap, every theft, every trick would now carry weight. The trickster could no longer rely solely on audacity. The river had reminded him. Life, like water, demands balance. Even the cleverest cannot escape it. Coyote rose, wet and weary, but wiser. Pride had been punished. Fire had been tempered. And the world, fragile and bright, awaited the next trick, this time guided not by arrogance, but by understanding. He turned toward the valley, toward the humans who huddled around their small, flickering flames, and whispered to himself, "Balance is not the enemy. It is the path." And for the first time, the trickster's laughter was tempered with respect or sound that promised mischief, but also wisdom. After the river's punishment, Coyote moved differently. No longer did he leap through valleys with reckless laughter or taunt the wind with acrobatic pride. Each step was careful, deliberate, almost silent, as if the earth itself had demanded respect. His blackened fur hung in damp clumps, paw pads scarred and raw from stone and water. Yet beneath the weariness, something new stirred, understanding. The forest welcomed him, in a cautious hush. Even the wind seemed reluctant to disturb the quiet rhythm of his steps. Coyote paused at the edge of a stream, staring at his reflection in the still water. The ember he had carried was no longer seared against his fit, rested deep inside him. Faint and glowing, a heartbeat of fire and caution. He saw not only his reflection, but the shadow of what he had been. Wild, arrogant, untouchable. And now, he saw the weight of what he had done. He did not speak. Words were unnecessary. The trees, the stones, and the flowing water understood without language. Every ripple of the river, every rustle of leaves, whispered lessons he could feel, but not yet articulate. Humility was heavy, but it was grounding. Pride had been punished, and silence was its companion. For days, Coyote traveled without haste. He passed through valleys where frost still clung to the grass, over mountains whose peaks pierced the clouds, and across plains where the first humans were learning to live with fire. The humans watched him cautiously. He had given them warmth and light. But his presence was also a reminder that power, even generous, could be dangerous. Coyote observed without intervening. He saw humans stumble and rise, quarrel and reconcile, cook their meals, and tell stories by the firelight. Each act fascinated him, yet he did not interfere. The river's lesson had been clear. To give a gift is not to control its outcome. He had given fire, but what humans did with it was beyond his reach. As he moved silently, the world seemed to speak to him. Birds perched in quiet observation, their heads cocked like sentinels. Streams meandered gently around his paws, as if guiding him along a path he could not yet see. The mountains exhaled clouds, and the wind carried whispers of storms that would shape the land. Everything was alive, and Coyote felt small in a way he had never known. In the stillness, memories of his previous arrogance rose like ghosts. He remembered the ridge where he had boasted to the sky, the forests that had shivered under the god's anger, the river that had nearly drowned him. Each memory burned like a spark against his conscience, reminding him that cleverness alone was not enough to survive in a world balanced between chaos and order. He traveled to a high plateau, where the sun touched the land with golden warmth. He sat at the edge, watching shadows stretch across the valleys below. Silence surrounded him, complete and heavy. Here, he began to understand the delicate threads that tied fire, humans, and the natural world together. Every action had consequence, every gift had risk, every laugh had its price. In the evenings, he observed the humans from afar. Children practiced careful handling of the flames, learning to feed the fire without letting it consume them. Elders whispered cautionary tales, teaching that fire was both friend and teacher. Coyote felt a strange pride, not the reckless pride of before, but a quiet satisfaction, tempered by understanding. He had given them fire, yes, but now they were learning its lessons for themselves. During one night, under a sky so vast it seemed to swallow the earth, Coyote felt the ember within him pulse softly. It was a reminder of the world above and the heavens he had once defied. The sky chiefs were still watching, still furious, but he no longer wished to taunt them. He had learned that survival was not in cleverness alone, but in patience, observation, and humility. The silent journey taught him more than escape or defiance ever could. He learned to read the land, which branches would bear his weight, which streams ran deep, which shadows hid danger. He learned to listen to the whispers of creatures too small to see. And he learned, finally, to listen to himself, to the quiet ember of thought that had guided him since birth. Days turned into weeks, and Coyote's fur grew matted, but strong. His steps left only faint impressions in the earth, as if he were learning to respect the world rather than conquer it. Occasionally, he would pause to watch a human struggling with fire or crafting tools, and a soft chuckle would escape him, gentle, almost reverent. No longer mocking, no longer defiant, but an acknowledgement of growth, both theirs and his own. At the journey's end, he came to a valley bathed in the first soft light of dawn. The humans' fires glowed in the distance, steady and warm, a reflection of the lessons learned. Coyote stood in the shadows, silent, his eyes tracing the rivers and mountains. The world was vast, dangerous, and alive, and he, for all his cunning, was but a single thread in its fabric. Yet he smiled, faintly, and whispered to himself, "Silence teaches what arrogance cannot. Fire burns, and so must we learn to carry it carefully." And with that, Coyote vanished into the morning mist, moving forward in quiet steps, leaving only faint traces of his passage. The silent journey had begun, not as a flight from punishment, but as a path toward wisdom, the path every trickster must walk when the thrill of cleverness meets the weight of consequence. The ember inside him glowed softly, a heartbeat of fire in the shadowed trickster's chest, reminding him always, the world listens, even when it says nothing. Coyote moved quietly through the forest, each step deliberate, each breath measured. The ember within him pulsed faintly, a reminder of fire, of power, and of responsibility. His silent journey had carried him far from the valley where humans first learned warmth. And yet the world still spoke to him in whispers of wind, rustle of leaves, and trickle of hidden streams. Every sound, every motion, every shadow carried meaning he had once ignored. It was in a deep, shadowed hollow, where sunlight barely touched the moss-covered earth, that he first felt the presence of another being older, wiser, and patient in a way the river and the gods had never been. A web of silvery threads stretched across the trees, glistening like dew in the filtered light. and at its center sat Grandmother Spider, her legs delicate but strong, her eyes luminous pools of ancient knowledge. Coyote paused, fur bristling slightly not in fear, but in awe. He had heard tales of the spider in whispers among the wind, among birds, and in human stories. She was the weaver of stories, the keeper of wisdom, the one who connected the threads of the world. To meet her was to meet the memory of creation itself. Coyote, the spider spoke, her voice soft, yet carrying weight. You have carried fire, stolen from the gods, and delivered it to humans. You have run from rivers, from storms, from the wrath of the sky chiefs. You have laughed, you have stumbled, and you have learned. But do you understand what it means to weave the consequences of your deeds into the world? Coyote lowered his head, tail curling around him. He wanted to speak, to boast, to show cleverness, but silence came instead. Words were unnecessary in the presence of one who understood the subtle threads that bound every life. Every spark of fire, every ripple of water. Grandmother Spider extended a leg, tracing a line in the air. Threads shimmered and shifted, revealing images of the humans tending their first fires. Of rivers swollen with rain, of forests untouched, and of gods above, their eyes bright with judgment. All that you touch ripples outward, she continued. Every trick, every gift, every act of pride, carries consequences beyond what you can see. You have learned this from the river. You have begun to understand it on your silent journey. But there is more. Coyote's ears twitched, sensing the truth in her words. He had been clever, daring, mischievous, but often careless. The river had humbled him, the chase of the gods had tested him, and the humans had shown him gratitude, fear, and awe. And now, in this quiet place, the spider's presence asked the greatest question yet. Could he weave his cunning into wisdom without losing the spark of mischief that defined him? Your fire is alive, she said, her legs moving with elegance, tracing invisible circles. It gives warmth, yes, but also knowledge. Humans will learn to carry it carefully, or they will be consumed. You have shaped their destiny by giving them what they were not ready to hold. This is the weight of the trickster, to offer gifts without fully knowing the results. Coyote nodded slowly. Pride still lingered, but it was tempered now. He understood that fire was not merely a tool, not merely warmth, it was story, it was choice. It was life's first dangerous truth. Grandmother Spider leaned closer. Coyote, even the cleverest trickster must learn patience. Even the wiliest fox must understand that some webs cannot be dodged. You have danced between chaos and order, but the threads of fate are many, and one misstep can unravel more than you intend. Will you carry your cunning with care, or will it burn everything in its path? Coyote's eyes met hers, glowing faintly with the ember inside him. I will try, he admitted, his voice soft, untested, yet sincere. I will weave carefully. But I cannot stop being who I am. I am Trickster. I must move, I must laugh, I must test the rules. But I will not be blind to the threads I touch. The spider regarded him with a slow nod, her many eyes reflecting the sunlight in silent approval. Good, she said. Wisdom is not the absence of mischief, it is knowing how to direct it. The fire is your legacy, Coyote, and humans will learn from it. But the greatest lessons come not from the flames themselves, but from how you and they respect the balance they ignite. Coyote lingered in the hollow, listening to the gentle hum of the web, to the forest breathing around him, to the soft heartbeat of the earth itself. The world was alive with threads, invisible yet powerful, and he had finally begun to see them. Each thread connected humans, animals, rivers, mountains, and God's every action rippling outward, intertwining with countless others. The trickster stretched, tail flicking, paws sinking into the soft moss. I will weave carefully, he whispered again, this time more confident. But I will not stop testing, laughing, and moving. The world needs mischief as much as it needs wisdom. Grandmother Spider's web shimmered one last time, a delicate, sparkling pattern that seemed to reach from the hollow into the farthest corners of the world. Then go, she said. Carry the fire, carry the lessons, and carry yourself. You have begun to understand the dance between chaos and order. The world will teach you more, but you are ready to listen. And with that, Coyote stepped from the hollow, moving silently through the forest. His silent journey had led him here, to wisdom tempered by patience, cunning guided by understanding, and mischief balanced by respect. The ember within him glowed steadily, a heartbeat of fire in the trickster's chest, reminding him always, every thread touched carries consequence, and every step forward is part of the web of life. Coyote vanished into the mist, leaving behind only the faintest shimmer of sparks and the echo of soft, thoughtful laughter. A trickster changed, but never tamed, ready to weave his story into the world once more. Coyote emerged from the forest, stepping lightly through the early morning mist. His fur damp from streams and morning dew clung to his body, but the ember inside him glowed steadily, a heartbeat, a fire that reminded him of the lesson he had learned from the river and the wisdom imparted by Grandmother Spider. Silence followed him like a cloak, wrapping the world in the careful rhythm of his steps. The valley where humans first received fire lay ahead, still smoldering from their fledgling efforts. Smoke rose in pale spirals into the sky, merging with clouds that had not forgotten the anger of the gods. Coyote paused on a ridge, looking down at the humans who moved among their flames, shaping their lives around the gifts he had given. They were cautious, yet curious, fragile, yet resilient. And for the first time, Coyote saw himself reflected in them, not as a trickster, stealing and laughing, but as a guide, walking quietly beside them, unseen but ever present. He descended into the valley, careful not to disturb the world with careless steps. The humans noticed him immediately. Their eyes widened, and some stepped back instinctively. The fires crackled between them, a living symbol of Coyote's daring, a spark of knowledge that had changed their lives. Coyote did not boast. He did not leap or taunt. Instead, he approached slowly, ears angled forward, tail low but twitching with restrained energy. Humans, sensing his intent, lowered their voices and watched. They remembered the fire he had brought, but they also remembered the fear. The stories whispered in awe, the first lessons of caution. A young boy, no older than the first child Coyote had seen when delivering the ember, stepped forward. His eyes were wide, reflecting the glow of the flames. "Trickster, you returned," he whispered. Coyote nodded once, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement. "I have returned," he said softly. His voice was quieter than before, tempered with patience and understanding. "To see what you have done with what I gave you. To see if fire has taught you, or if it has consumed you." The humans glanced at one another, uncertain. Their trust had been forged in small steps, and now it was tested again by the trickster's presence. Coyote walked among them, observing quietly. He saw children tending the fires, learning how to coax warmth without letting it devour their hands. He saw elders instructing with gentle authority, teaching that fire was not only for survival but for stories, for lessons, for shaping the world with care. A woman approached him cautiously, holding a bundle of sticks. "You gave us fire," she said, "but you also gave us lessons we did not ask for. The rivers nearly drowned you for it, and the gods still watch us. Why return now?" Coyote's eyes softened. "Because learning is never finished," he said. "Fire is alive, and life is alive. Every gift carries consequence. I have walked the silent paths, endured rivers and storms, and learned to see the threads of the world. I return not to give more, but to watch, to guide when needed, and to remind you that what you hold is powerful." The humans listened, the weight of his words settling over them like a soft blanket. Coyote moved among their small homes, the flames of their fires casting long, trembling shadows. Every flicker reminded him that gifts could illuminate or destroy, that knowledge could inspire or overwhelm. And he understood now that his role was no longer to dazzle or defy, but to weave carefully, letting the humans learn to carry what he had given. Days passed as Coyote remained with them, though always at the edge of the valley, a silent observer. He taught by example, how to respect the fire, how to tend it without arrogance, how to see the small signs of danger in nature. He spoke sparingly, letting the humans discover their own lessons through action, through trial, through careful attention. Sometimes, when no humans watched, he would leap and bound, tail flicking, ears perking, the old trickster spark still alive within him, but it was tempered by wisdom. His laughter no longer challenged the sky or mocked the river. Instead, it danced softly through the forest, a gentle reminder that mischief was not absent, only refined. At night, he would sit near the humans' fires, hidden in shadow, and watch. The flickering flames reflected in his eyes, mirroring the ember in his chest. He saw the children learning to hold the fire safely, the adults passing on knowledge, the village forming its own rhythm and understanding. Pride swelled not the pride of arrogance, but the quiet satisfaction of seeing a gift nurtured with care. And yet, Coyote knew the gods still watched. Their eyes were eternal, their anger patient. Lightning still arced across distant clouds, a reminder that consequences never vanished entirely. But Coyote also knew that humans, guided by their own courage and curiosity, would begin to write their own stories. The fire would burn, the lessons would endure. And he, the trickster, would continue to move between the threads, sometimes seen, sometimes unseen, always watching, always guiding, always learning. Coyote stood once more on a ridge, watching the valley glow with life. The silent journey had led him here, tempered by rivers, shaped by the spider, and tested by pride. The ember in his chest glowed steadily, a living heartbeat of fire and responsibility. He smiled quietly, flicking his tail. "I gave them fire," he whispered. "Now they must learn to carry it." And with that, Coyote slipped back into the forest, moving silently once more. The humans continued their work, the flames reflecting the dawn. And the world had shifted yet again, because the trickster had returned. Not to steal or boast, but to witness the legacy of his. The valley lay quiet under the first light of dawn. Smoke from the humans' fires mingled with mist, curling into the sky like whispered secrets. Coyote stood atop a ridge, the ember in his chest glowing softly, a steady, living heartbeat of fire. He had returned to the humans, guided by lessons from the river and grandmother spider. He had witnessed the careful growth of their knowledge, the way they learned to balance curiosity with caution. And now, he understood that his story was not his alone. It lived in every flicker of their flames, in every shadow cast by their hearths, in every heartbeat of life that fire had touched. Coyote's steps were quiet as he descended into the valley. The humans stirred, some pausing to watch the trickster move among them. But he did not leap, did not taunt, did not boast. His presence was gentle, almost reverent. He observed their daily lives. Children coaxing the fire to life. Elders teaching the careful handling of sparks. Hunters and gatherers learning to respect both flame and forest. Every action was a lesson, and every lesson was a reflection of the gift he had given, stolen from gods, tempered by rivers, guided by webs of wisdom. For the first time, Coyote felt the weight of immortality, not in body, but in legacy. Fire was eternal in its lessons, and humans would carry it forward, generation after generation. The ember within him pulsed with understanding. He would never die as humans understood death. His cleverness, his mischief, his daring acts, and his gifts had imprinted themselves on the world. He would live in stories whispered by firesides, in lessons passed through hands and hearts, in every spark that danced in the night. Yet immortality was not freedom from consequence. The Sky Chiefs still watched, their fury tempered by the passage of time but never gone. Storms rolled across the distant mountains, reminding Coyote that the heavens held judgment, even as he walked among the mortals who now held fire. And still, he moved lightly, carefully, his silent journey now complete in understanding, if not in action. Coyote paused near a circle of fire, where children sat wide-eyed, listening to an elder recount a tale of a clever animal who stole fire from the gods and taught humans to wield it wisely. The children shivered with wonder, their faces lit by orange light. Coyote's ears twitched. They did not know it yet, but they were learning from him, not from the creature before them, but from the story he had woven into the fabric of their world. He stepped back into the shadows, watching as humans nurtured their flames. Their hands were steady, their eyes cautious yet curious. Every spark carried responsibility, and every story carried the memory of the trickster who had taught them. Pride rose within him, not the reckless pride of youth, but a tempered, quiet satisfaction. He had changed the world, and his legacy would outlive his flesh. The wind carried the faintest laughter, soft and thoughtful, weaving among the trees, over rivers, and across mountains. Coyote smiled, even tempered by wisdom, even humbled by consequence. He remained trickster. Mischief was not gone. It had simply learned patience. Every leap, every jest, every clever act would now carry meaning. He would test, provoke, and guide, but always with respect for the delicate threads of life. From the ridge, he saw the humans' fires glowing like constellations scattered across the valley floor. Each flame was a story, a heartbeat, a gift that traveled beyond the hands of mortals into eternity. And Coyote knew that in every one of those flames, his spirit lived wild, clever, enduring, and eternal. The Sky Chief's lightning danced in distant clouds, yet it no longer threatened him in the way it once had. Coyote had learned that defiance alone was not enough. Wisdom and mischief must move together, or both burn. He would always be hunted by consequence, yet he had also woven himself into the very fabric of life, making him untouchable in ways the gods could never fully undo. He lifted his head to the rising sun. Its light caught the ember within him, making it shine like a second dawn. The humans would grow, they would learn, they would pass on the flame. And wherever fire traveled, so too would the story of the trickster who had stolen it, suffered for it, and guided its careful use. Coyote's paws stirred the earth, leaving faint prints that glimmered briefly in morning dew. He began to move, silently and deliberately, along the ridge that overlooked the valley. His laughter rose, soft and warm, echoing through the mountains, not a challenge, but a reminder. A reminder that mischief, cleverness, and courage could survive even in the weight of wisdom. And in that moment, the world itself seemed to breathe with him. Every river, every tree, every flickering flame carried the memory of his deeds. Coyote realized the truth of his immortality. It was not the body that lasted, nor the fire that could be stolen or lost. It was the story, the legacy, the living, breathing tale that humans would carry into the future, shaping their lives, their choices, and their understanding of the world. The trickster paused once more, ears flicking, tail swishing, eyes gleaming with the spark of cunning. He had been humbled, tested, and guided, yet he remained free to move, free to laugh, free to weave the threads of mischief and wisdom into the tapestry of life. Coyote vanished into the morning mist, leaving the humans to their fires, their stories, and their lessons. And somewhere in the valley, in every spark and flicker, in every whispered tale around the flames, the trickster's presence endured, eternal, untamed, wise, and forever alive in the legacy he had created, the legacy of the trickster who gave fire to humanity, and in doing so, changed the world forever.